Welcome into another episode of Lock City MMA. Last week we made some good money on the Lock City parlay, so let's keep that rolling this week. We have UFC Fight Night, Ankalaev versus Guskov. Now this is going to be in Abu Dhabi, so you're going to see a lot of fighters that don't normally get to fight in the US on this card. Let's break it down. And let's get right into it. So in the main event, we have Mogomed Ankalaev versus Bogdan Guskov. Now I will butcher some of these names during this fight card, so I do apologize ahead of time. Mogomed Ankalaev is coming off a loss to Alex Pereira, where Alex just kind of brutally came out and slept him. But before that, he did beat Alex Pereira in a 5-round, basically wrestling match. And why that's important is Brogdon Gustav, if he gets brought down to the ground, he really struggles with getting the opponent off him and being able to get back up to his feet, which I think Ankalaev could really take advantage of and land some good ground and pound. Now, the cool thing about Ankalaev, though, is he's not just a wrestler. He's actually known for being a really elite striker. Now, he has super good counter striking since he's a traditional southpaw. He can land his right hand to the body of his opponents, which really makes them drop their hands down. And when they start dropping those hands down to defend those shots, he's really sneaky with mixing in some really good kicks. Ankalaev can land shots to the body or headshots that can knock people out. And the combination of those two coming at you on the feet is super dangerous. Now, Ankalaev was supposed to fight Khalil Roundtree, but Khalil Roundtree pulled out of this fight. So Gustav is coming in on short notice. So that is always something you want to factor in when it does come to betting. I think Gustav is a awesome upcoming prospect who is going to have a very good future in front of him, but I just don't think he's ever fought anyone as good as Ankalaev, and I think Ankalaev is just a little bit better than him in all facets of the UFC game. Now Gustav does have 13 first round finishes, and he has 15 finishes out of his 18 fights. So this guy loves to come out, throw a high pace, and just try to get his opponent out of there as quick as possible. Now, one of his downfalls with that, though, is that he's been getting caught and getting hit when he tries to push the opponent in the pace, which in this fight with Ankalaev's power can honestly put him to sleep. I think it's going to be a really good fight. I don't know if Ankalaev is going to get him out under the 2.5 rounds that DraftKings has up right now. So the over could be a sneaky bet there. But I do think either by decision or by Ankalaev getting Gustav to the ground and just ground and pounding and dominating him, I think he's going to get the finish probably in round 3 or 4. So I am picking Ankalaev here to win by TKO. You can lock that in. We have Steve Ercik versus Ramazan Termavov in the co-main event. Now, Steve Ercik is coming in with a 5-inch reach advantage that I do think could play a factor at some point in this fight. Steve Ercik has kind of fallen in love with striking over his last 4 to 5 fights because he did get a KO, which catapulted him to the top of the division to get a title shot against Pantoja. In that title fight against Pantoja, he did kind of get destroyed on the feet, and he did lose in a decision. Now, over his last 5, he has squeaked out a couple of decisions, but he has also gotten knocked out by Kaya Kara France. Ramazan, on the other hand, he's on a 5-fight win streak, and this guy for the 125 division probably hits harder than anyone. The power that he throws with that right hand can put anyone to sleep at any point. 11 of his wins in his professional career have been by TKO or KO, including a devastating first round knockout in his promotional debut. He also has a good hand to hand and karate combat background. He was actually, let me look at my notes here, the former Asian hand to hand combat champion. So he definitely knows how to work inside the clinch position. and even kind of stop wrestlers from getting good positions when trying to take them down, which leads into his takedown defense. He actually maintains a official 100% takedown defense in his UFC career. So he's very, very tough to actually get to the ground, where Steve Ercik may be able to use some of that BJJ, where he definitely has an advantage over Ramazan. Now, because of the takedown defense, I think it's going to end up being a striking fight. And Steve Ercik, well, he does have pretty good striking. When things start getting wild and Ramazan might be throwing a flurry of punches at him, Steve doesn't have the best IQ and sometimes walks into punches and is kind of predictable. Steve has been getting hit a lot ever since that Pantoja fight, and I feel like the more tape that comes out on him, the more the opponents will be able to find holes and pockets in his striking defense. And I can honestly see Ramazan with his power. It's not going to take 125 punches like it normally does in this weight division. It could literally be one shot and a knockout. And because of that, I got Ramazan to win by TKO over Steve Ercik in a gritty fight. Lock it in. This is a fight that you guys will not be able to take a bathroom break on. It's going to be a quick fight and it's going to be a big knockout. We have Islam Dulatov versus Wellington Turman. Now, Islam Dulatov is known to be a super aggressive fighter and just comes out of the gate blazing. He has a 100% finish rate with 7 knockouts, 5 submissions. 11 of those finishes have come within the first round, and 6 of those finishes have come in the first 60 seconds of the fight. The other really good thing that Islam has is a huge frame. He's about 6'3" and has a 75-inch reach, so that is going to be a lot longer than a lot of his opponents in the 155 division, which will give him an advantage when it comes to the striking as well. Now, Wellington Turman is pretty good at jiu-jitsu. So on the ground, he can be a menace. He can throw you in some submissions, and if you're on top, it's probably going to be tough to submit him, but if he's dazed on how he got down there, you might be able to ground and pound and finish him. He hasn't actually fought since 2023, and he's coming in on a 3-fight losing streak. So what that means is I think he's going to get freaking smoked. I think Islam Dulatov just got a offering from the UFC, and he's going to destroy him. I think Islam takes him out in the first round via TKO. I think he lands a couple big shots on him. He drops and finishes him with a ground and pound. This is one of the easiest calls of the night, and it's going to be the main part of my Lock City parlay. Let's lock it in. Up next, we have a clash of 2 different fight styles, so it's always very interesting to see how it turns out. We have Damian Rzepecki versus Mogomed Zaynukov. Now, Damian is actually in the same camp as Ilia Topuria, to where Mogomed is in the same camp as Islam Makhachev, who those 2 guys are trying to fight each other. So I think that's kind of ironic. Could this be maybe a mini preview of what would happen in that fight even? Because both of these guys use the same fighting styles as Ilia and Islam. So Damian is known more for his knockout power and kind of a KO artist, where Mogomed is known more as a wrestler, grinded out, can do damage on the feet, but usually gets a hard-fought decision. They are both undefeated prospects. One, Damian 10-0, Mogomed at 8-0. So it's going to be very interesting and a hard fight to bet on. But in my experience with the UFC and anyone that trains with Islam and even possibly Khabib at that point, I'm going to pick them to win. Mogomed, in my opinion, will just out-wrestle Damian over the 3 rounds. And how he's going to get there, Mogomed likes to throw a right and left hand to kind of back the opponents up to the cage. From there, he shoots. And then a lot of time, the opponents just don't get back up. So I don't think it will be a very interesting fight. Now, if Damian is somehow able to stop the takedowns of Mogomed, this fight becomes very interesting because I do think Damian could hurt Mogomed on the feet and potentially even finish him. But I don't see that happening. So I have Mogomed to win by decision. We go from a couple great upcoming prospects to a couple heavyweights that are kind of boring because of their styles. So up next, we have Rizon Kuniev versus Tyrell Fortune. Now, honestly, they're very similar. They're both really good wrestlers. They have some decent kickboxing when the fight is on the feet. The biggest difference, in my opinion, is that Fortune definitely is going to have some more power in the striking, but he's getting old. I think he's 38 years old now. And one of his best things that he had with his wrestling style is his explosiveness. And I think anything that gets out of that first round, Tyrell will just start to slow it down, and it could cost him not only positions, but getting taken down himself in those later rounds by Kuniev. Now, Kuniev is maybe not as strong as Fortune, but he has a way better cardio and gas tank than him, which will play a huge factor in this fight. I think that their wrestling will cancel each other out. So it will be one of those situations where you have two main wrestling type of styles, but they'll be striking. So the striking won't be the best. It'll be kind of sloppy and it'll be kind of boring. But I think Kuniev is just going to do enough to win on the feet. And like I said, I think he gets some takedowns in those later rounds to really solidify a decision win for him. So I don't think this is going to be the best fight, but I could also see Kuniev catching him in those later rounds with a big shot, dropping him, and then winning with ground and pound. So my official prediction is going to be Kuniev to win by TKO. Lock it in. Up next, we have Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Sam Patterson. Now, Santiago hasn't fought in about a year and 2 months. In that last fight, he did get knocked out to Daniel Rodriguez. He's 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and he's approaching 40 years of age. He's lost some of that explosiveness that he's known for with his fighting style. He likes to come out of the round and kind of push the pace. He has a really good boxing foundation, so he knows how to throw good jabs and overhands with decent combos to the body. But another big weapon of him is he knows how to mix in the lower leg kick, which can really bother opponents and even cause them to have to switch stances, which makes them uncomfortable and can open them up to different types of shots. Or if they don't switch stances, it just destroys that leg and it can become a factor in the fight. With all that being said, I don't think Sam Patterson is going to really have to worry about the striking from Santiago. Sam Patterson's coming off a loss to MVP where he just kind of got outpointed. But MVP is such a unique and weird kind of blade style of fighting. It's very hard for people to get used to that fight style. Now, before that, he's on a 4 fight win streak. He's knocked out Trey Waters, knocked out Danny Barlow, and he also has some good submissions. So that's the thing about Sam Patterson is not only does he have really explosive power in his hands and he's super aggressive with those hands, but if he gets you to the ground, he's actually really good in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. So he has 7 career submissions. So you can't sleep on him when it comes to the ground game. So you always have to be worried with this guy. I think between the age, Sam's power, it's not the greatest combo for Santiago. Now, we all love him. He's the one that runs the UFC Spanish broadcast. But sadly, I think with Santiago kind of leaving his head on the center line when he attacks, he's going to get caught by Sam, and Sam's going to put him to sleep. I got Sam Patterson knocking out Santiago. Lock it in. We have another great fight here with Ishmael Bonfim versus Axel Sola. Now, Bonfim is known for his 2023 flying knee knockout of Terrence McKinney, but since then he's on a 1-3 skid with some brutal losses in there. He got beat pretty bad by Benoit Saint Denis and then subbed out, and then in his last fight he's been knocked out. So Bonfim isn't a scrub. He does have some good striking. He's got 9 knockouts in his career, and 6 of those have come from the first round. One of the things that kind of scares me about Ishmael, though, is that he has a hard time making weight. So when he gets hit to the body, it really affects him more than it would some other people. So one of the things that I see in Bonfim's fights is that when he gets hit, he kind of just starts to crumble, and his mentality goes down with that because he's getting hurt, which could be a big factor, I think, in this fight. Now, on the opposite spectrum, we have Axel Sola. This guy, like I said earlier, went through an absolute war in his last fight with Mason Jones, and it could be up for fight of the year, in my opinion. Before that, he was 4-0 with a couple KOs here, so he's definitely got some good power in his hands. He's got the reach advantage as well when it comes to that. With being 6 foot tall compared to a 5'8" competitor, you're going to see that there's going to look like a big difference in that ring. Alex Sola has a really good way of pressuring his opponents with throwing left, rights, and even some head kicks in there as well. He can get opponents to the ground and put them in the crucifix, and then just starts dropping big elbows for either TKO finishes or at least to damage their opponents to where it's going to affect them throughout the rest of the fight. This guy is dangerous wherever it goes in that ring, and I think he's just going to hurt Ishmael. I think Ishmael is like a worse version of his brother Gabriel, who I think everyone refers to when you hear the name Bonfim. He just fought a couple months ago and won. So what I think is going to happen, I think Ishmael might even look good in the first round. He might come out, throw some striking. I think he'll stay on the feet. Axel is going to land the bigger punches, and you're going to see a difference in the way that these fighters receive the punches. Axel is not going to get defeated over the first couple rounds if he's getting beat up the way that Ishmael is going to beat himself up over it. That's going to play a big factor. And then the cardio by the third round, I think he just gets way too tired. And I think Axel Sola finishes him here. If not, he wins by decision. Either way, Sola is going to win this fight, and it is a lock. The last fight I want to talk about tonight is Nurullo Aliev versus Mike Davis. Now, Nurullo is not going to be your favorite fighter to watch. He has a very kind of boring style where he just pressures on the feet, maybe some lefts, some rights to back opponents up, and then shoots for the takedown. He's mainly a wrestler that doesn't do a lot of damage, but he does enough top control and submission attempts and a little bit of ground and pound to win rounds and squeak out decisions. He hasn't looked amazing in all of his fights, but he is 11-0 at this point and a big prospect coming up through the UFC rankings. Mike Davis, on the other hand, was a big prospect back earlier in the 2020s, but he never really filled out to that role that the UFC wanted him to have. He is 12-3. He did lose a decision to Faris Zaim, which was a pretty lopsided fight, but he did come back and landed some ground and pound to knock out Mitch Ramirez. Mike Davis is pretty good on the ground, and when he is in top control on the ground, he definitely causes a lot of damage to the opponents, to where, like with the last fight, he gets a knockout, or like I mentioned earlier, you just kind of do enough damage to where it will affect the fighter the rest of the fight. With that being a cut, a swollen eye, whatever it may be, that can really play a big factor when it comes into these fights. What I think's gonna happen is what people don't want to happen. I think Nurullo is just gonna have a boring fight where he brings Mike Davis down to the ground, controls him on the ground, does enough damage to where the ref won't stand up, but not enough damage to where you're gonna be happy watching it. I think it's to be a boring decision win for him, but no matter what, it's gonna be a win. So lock it in. Just want to take a second to thank everyone that's made it to this point of the video. These videos do take a long time for me to make. If you don't mind dropping a like, a comment, or subscribing to the channel, it'll motivate me to keep making these videos and keep making us some money. Let's get into the bets. So for the Lock City Parlay, I have Islam Dulatov, KO, Axel Sola, total odds plus 129. The next bet I want to talk about is the damn. Did you see that parlay? Islam Dulatov, KO, in round 1, minus 160. Walter Walker submission, specifically a heel hook, plus 175. Total odds, plus 364. The beers for the boys. I got Ankalaev, Dulatov by KO, Kuniev, Alex Sola, Sam Patterson, and Nurolo. Plus 517. And then honestly, this is one of those cards where I think you could build a crazy parlay and actually hit it. So that's what this shooting for the stars parlay is. Basically every fight, you guys see the names, plus 2,221. Throw $5 on it. Thank you guys again for making it to this far in the video, and I appreciate it. Let's lock it in.